I am Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director, Events Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Janelle Hanley. She is the CMO of Hospital for Special Surgery. Hey, Janelle, welcome.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, no, excited to be able to chat with you and find out more about what you've been up to. But first, I have to mention, I love your view. It is awesome. So, is this Manhattan?
This is Manhattan. This is 3rd Avenue between 48th and 49th, right behind me.
Very nice, very impressive. So I love it. Well, anyway, and to go with your amazing view and amazing title, congratulations. You are CMO now, 4 months ago, is it?
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I have to say, let's say, I always say I do my little snooping, and I saw on your LinkedIn, and did I use my Boston? I saw that was one that I always did the Boston accent. Anyway, I saw on your LinkedIn page that you wrote, "I'm happy to share. I'm starting a new." Oops, wait, I skipped something. You wrote first, "One day has become day one. I'm happy to share. Starting a new position as Chief Marketing Officer at Hospital for Special Surgery." So I want to break that down. Like when you say, well, first of all, the feeling behind it. One day has become day one. I mean, what was the feeling behind it in the sense that was this, since you've been at Hospital for Special Surgery, your goal? Was this the goal since you were a kid? Were you this something that you just didn't think would happen? Like, talk about that and what all of this meant to you.
It was definitely a journey. So CMO was almost always a career goal for me. But there was a time in which I sort of lost that. And it was during the time that my daughter was born. And around that time, I had made the decision that I wanted to stay home with her for a while and be really intentional about that time as a parent. And in that process, you become a parent and things that used to matter all of a sudden don't, and new things do. And I found myself not really wanting that anymore. I knew I was always going to return to the workforce, but it just didn't feel like anything that was pressing to me and that it was driving me forward. But I was okay with that. And I just sort of figured, I'll find another path. A few years later, my son was born, and again, still home with him. But during that time, I had met and reconnected with some women who were mothers who were pretty much at the same stage. And these were mothers who had very similar backgrounds, and they were doing these really amazing things with their careers. And I loved it for them, and I loved it for us in general. And I just thought it was awesome. And it really inspired me. And it brought back that desire again to become CMO. Like I could sort of see it.
Hmm.
And so as a result, when I entered the workforce again, I just knew that that was where I wanted to go. And so I tried to make decisions that would sort of strategically place me on that path. And so here I am.
I mean, and as you say, you're not alone when you come to that. And I think it becomes almost it's a pivotal moment, making that decision where you're afraid maybe, as you said, you're no longer on that path that you had always seen for yourself.
Yeah.
But you knew what you wanted and you took that and you wanted to be with your little girl and then son.
Yeah.
Talk about that though, when you're thinking coming back, and even though you're seeing these women who are now showing you, hey, you can have that, you can be both.
Yeah.
But still, what were the biggest fears? Like how, or maybe the biggest obstacle in terms of jumping back in? Because all of a sudden you have this gap in your resume.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was real because I never intended to stay out of the workforce. Like initially it was like 1, maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
I think it ended up being 4. And that was scary to me because you're out of the workforce at 4 years at this stage in your career. How do you come back and not feel like you're taking 10 steps back? And so what I did do is during my time out was just ensure that I was staying involved somehow. And so I did some consulting work for like small businesses one, to give myself like a sense of purpose, away from motherhood, but also obviously to keep myself sharp and to continue to build connections. And I think that's what really helped me, because when I was ready to re-enter, I had something to show for that time, that sort of helped me land positions.
Well, and I think that's a key point to make, because it's just you obviously you went right back, here you are at CMO. So it is something that, and I'm sure anyone watching will feel, who's going through that, who may be going through that. It's a scary decision to make, but
Yeah.
to know that someone like you and others like yourself who have been able to re-enter the workforce, but you did it very strategically smart, however you want to say it, but in the sense that you stayed in touch, you stayed up on things. You didn't come in saying, okay, I've lost these whatever amount of years, 2 years or 4 years, and then have to play catch up. So I think that's really smart the way you handled it. So, and that's, as I said, it's inspirational to people watching. So then anyone else going through what you're going through can sort of take solace in that.
Thank you. I have to say I'm very grateful that I can say that I've held two CMO titles, Chief Mom Officer and Chief Marketing Officer. It means a lot to me.
And I'm sure Chief Mom Officer probably has a little bit more, maybe stress or trying to maneuver. Maybe there's things that aren't quite you. There's no handbook for that in general.
No, there is not. It's definitely the harder of the two, and it's one that I haven't yet given up. So I'm doing two CMO roles at once.
Yeah, well, I know, and I can vouch for that. We had to reschedule because she had to take care of her little boy who had a little mishap. All good, no, nothing to worry about. But of course, mommy had to come through. So I always, anytime something like that happens, I'm like, do what you need to do. So I love that. But well, I have to say, in terms of your career path, predominantly, it seems like you had been on the agency side, although I know early on had been at Sprint and Verizon, and just before here you were at Deloitte, and now today. Talk about that. Let's go back to college and graduating and thinking about what you were thinking about. What were you aspiring for, and what sort of happened? What was that journey like that brought you the path that brought you to here?
Sure. It wasn't linear, which is something that I think should be normalized. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to feel like we sort of constantly have to take steps in an upward direction, but a lot of the time you go back, you go forward, you zigzag, and you sort of figure out along the way what you want. When I graduated from college, I knew I wanted to go into marketing, and so I kind of worked my way into those roles in the telecom space. And after a while, I wasn't quite doing what I wanted to in marketing, but I had always had a love and interest in writing and editing, and I wanted to be a magazine editor. I was interested in editorial strategy. I was interested in creating content. I was interested in messaging. And so I went back to school. I left the workforce. I went to school full time to make this career change. And while I was in grad school, I realized that I still wasn't really ready to walk away from my love of brands. And with journalism, you can't do that. um, and I sort of found a way through involvement in a capstone project when I was, about to graduate. We were working with an agency, and I got exposed to the discipline, the role of like consumer connection strategy. And then that was kind of a light bulb for me. And I realized I can still, be involved with and work for brands, but also get that sort of messaging strategy and finding ways to make things matter to a particular audience. And so I pursued that upon graduation, and did a number of strategy roles in agencies, usually in CPG. But I always knew I wanted to go back to the client side. So I kind of stayed there and got what I felt like I needed to get from agency world, and eventually made my way back to the client side. And it was always an interest to me to feel like I really own a brand. And so that's what I wanted to come back to the client side to do.
Well, and backing it up, like you talked about how it wasn't a linear path and you really needed to be willing to try new things and even, getting the journalism master. So that gives you that whole other skill set. Like all of these different skill sets that you're sort of picking up as you go into different things. So someone coming to you wanting to be you, wanting to be a CMO, um, is that important to have all of these opportunities to kind of not have that direction of just do the same, stay in that, whether it be a digital path or whatever it may be, but to sort of zigzag a little bit to be a CMO because you really have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, you do. I think anytime you can get more experience and perspective, it's great. But, I couldn't say to someone, this is how you have to do it. I think there's so many paths to it, and it just has to be something that's true to you. You have to follow what you want to do. You have to follow where your strengths are and identify those areas and how are you best going to be able to contribute to something. And so that's what guided me in my path that ultimately brought me back here.
Yeah, so it's not don't chase the role,
Yeah,
chase what you're good at, what you
yeah,
excel.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. What is it? Is there something that maybe people get wrong about you when they first meet you? What's that one thing?
People always assume that I am more serious and more disciplined than I really am. I think I naturally have a serious expression. My natural face expression is serious, and when I'm thinking, I'm usually frowning if I'm deep in thought, and so people will see me and assume I'm mad or assume I'm upset. Uh, the other part of it that kind of trips me out sometimes is that people think that I'm this very regimented, like disciplined person when it comes to my lifestyle, and I'm so not. I wish I could be the person that's up at 5 a.m. working out every morning and like constantly eating the right things, but that I'm not there.
Yeah, I actually can see that. I mean, you definitely you have this very poised demeanor, a little on the serious, but I've seen those, especially when we talked about your kids or like before we even started, just those little, so I see that once you either get to know someone or, in a different setting or whatever it may be, I can see how that other side will come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see that serious vibe.
I see how people see it. I'm usually initially reserved, but it is at the end of the day, I like to have fun. I enjoy people and just camaraderie.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I've seen those come through. So I'm all with you there. So, all right. Now, I also like to see different, okay, so HSS, Hospital Special Surgery. You have this new, I guess, an original episode series that you've been promoting on LinkedIn. I want to read it. It's the science of movement, and it's giving an insider point of view as athletes and HSS clinicians explore the science behind these incredible feats of athleticism. All right, so one of the questions asked in that post is, have you ever wondered what it's like to move like the world's greatest athletes? All right, so giving it to you now. Who or what specific athlete have you wanted to move like and why?
I, especially now that I've done this project, I appreciate the grace of a sprinter. I think it's a beautiful thing to watch, and I appreciate the finesse and the grit of a tennis player. And I think both of those in life in general, you need a certain level of grit and a certain level of grace. And I really value that. If I had to pick a person, it's got to be Serena Williams. When I play tennis in my mind, I am Serena Williams on the court. But the truth is, I'm like barely an advanced beginner, having only picked it up a couple of years ago. But in my mind, I'm winning Grand Slams like she is.
Well, then that's half the battle, right? You just got to get out there and Serena, she has that power, but also a
Yeah,
grace, like so sort of act exactly what you were describing.
yeah,
Uh, and she has all of that as well. And, I'm sure if I were watching you on the tennis court, I'd be like, is that Serena? Wait.
I guarantee you will not be confused.
Okay, so now continuing on with this mode of the post, it says on the LinkedIn post, the level of speed that professional sprinters achieve is something we will never experience in our lives. They are literally testing the limits of human motion every time they compete. All right, so we're getting out of sports. We know you're already a star tennis player, so we don't need to go there. Is there something that you've experienced in life that you just never expected? And just like, was it what you expected? Was it better? Was it worse? Like anything that's happened for you that was just like, wow.
I have to say motherhood. And I knew that it was not all rosy going into it. I watched my sister, navigate two newborns ahead of my embarking on the journey. So I sort of knew, but you're never fully prepared for what you're about to become and what you have to do. And it just tests you in a way that you could never imagine. It pulls at your emotions in a way that you could never imagine, and it never ceases. And what I think is probably the part that I sort of didn't expect the most is how I would navigate meeting the needs of caring for and providing for a person or people, but then also balancing meeting the needs of and providing for and building up myself when 99% of the time they're at conflict. So that is, I think, probably one of the most unexpected journeys in my lifetime that I'm still navigating, and I don't know that anyone ever figures it out.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I think you make a good point in the sense that, like a lot of times, people say, well, it's all about the kids, or that I just have to forget about me now. But I think that you're better for them if you're
Yeah.
also taking care of yourself.
Yeah, you are. But it's a hard decision to make. And I have to remind myself that I need to play certain roles, or I need to pay attention to certain things. I've sort of gotten into this habit now since becoming CMO. When I go home, I sort of tell myself, chief mom officer or chief wife officer. And then, when I'm at work, it's, chief marketing officer. So sort of looking at the people that I need to play a role for in my life and remembering that I need to do this, I need to be this for this person, this for myself, etc.
Is it carpent? I'm not saying this right. Carpental. What do you know what I'm saying? Siloing, but it's not siloing. Carpental. I'm not able to say this word.
Compartmentalizing.
Thrown it out there earlier, couldn't you? Times. Is
In
that
a way, yes, it is. Because you have to, I think, to be the best to someone and to give yourself to someone in a moment, you have to then put aside other things. And so, yes, for me, it is when I walk in the door at home, I can be best if I know that now is my time to be mom and wife. And when I come in here, then hopefully I can sort of put those ones aside and focus on what I need to be to my team.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you're not, I guess, otherwise you might be too distracted, or it's just you're not, you can focus your attention where you need to be.
Yeah.
All right, so think of back when you were younger and Janelle, maybe 9 years old. Any advice you'd give her? Or 9 to 12, let's say. Is there advice you would give Janelle back then?
Ooh, 9 to 12.
Yeah, in that forming, shaping, not too young where you don't know, whatever, but then maybe you've learned more by the time you're teen years, maybe. But in that really that shaping?
I would say that the one thing I didn't appreciate early in life was the power of relationships and the dynamics of relationships that you need as you go on. So ever since I was young, for me, it was always like, find the one person who's your best friend. And then I was good. I was like, I have my core and I'm good. I don't need people on the peripheral. If you don't fit the needs of what I consider a best friend, then you don't make it. And I was like that for a while until I realized as I got older, I think graduating from college, I realized, oh, I need certain relationships now that I'm entering into the world. I need relationships. I need people to open doors. I need people I can open doors for. And all of that just sort of helps you navigate life and career, just like the women I cited that inspired me, you need that exposure to people and those interactions to help build you. So I think that would be the thing I would probably say I missed most early on in life.
Yeah, I think there are people in our lives for certain reasons,
Yep.
in certain ways. Like, and I was similar. I had all best friends, and I expected that as I moved on and left, I moved across the country, and all of a sudden expecting all these best friends.
Yep.
And that doesn't, like, first of all, yeah, why would they even want to be? But in general, if you don't get what you're wanting or you think you should be getting or
Yep.
what you find as a friend, then you kind of walk away from it or
Yep.
whatever. So I see what you're saying. Like, it's just like not everyone fits into every, there's all different aspects of, well, how people are in your life and why they're in your life and how long they're in your life for that matter.
Absolutely.
So I totally agree. Well, so I want to ask you in terms of, with when talking about letting more people into your life, to our lives, and DEI. I mean, that's something that we're talking about a lot about today. I think that there's different people talk about it in different ways. What does DEI mean to you?
I think in its simplest form, there are not a lot of things in this world that don't benefit from diversity of thought, diversity of talent, diversity of experience, perspective, and the workforce is no exception.
Yeah. And so as a CMO, someone who is in a position to make a difference within your organization, how do you make a difference? And how would you, because not everyone's at different levels, and I don't mean people,
Mhm.
everyone, I mean organizations. They're all different levels in their quest for diversity. So
Mhm.
for you, what do you need to do to sort of maintain that or improve that within your organization?
I focus on two things. One is uh, building a relationship within my team. So I think it's really important that we know who each other is, like we know each other as a person. And, you know, I want to create an environment where people are willing to share and show up, as much as themselves as they want to, and that we all have an understanding. And then I know that this person comes from this, and this is their outlook on life, and this is their priority, and this is their family, and this is what they like to do. All of that, I think, helps me appreciate and be more empathetic to anybody's plight. I think the second thing that I focus on is ensuring that people are really diligent about and really intentional about hiring. I think you have to work a little bit harder maybe than you have before, look in different sources than you have before. But there's no lack of diverse talent out there, and I think people have to be committed to finding it.
Yep. And the thing is, even if, I mean, I think we all agree, or we should all agree, that it's the right thing to do to be open-minded to everyone, to join your organization, to be a part of everything. But also, if you can't even look at it that way, it's about the bottom line. I mean, you talked about it right in the get-go. You want all these different experiences. You want all of these different opinions because that's who's out there. That, as a marketer, is who you're representing or trying to
Right.
meet. So if it just makes sense even on the business level.
Yep, absolutely.
So, um, back to a little fun. What's your guilty pleasure?
I have two. One being low budget rom-com movies. Can't get enough of them. Two being stomach sleeping. It is so
Really?
bad for your back, but it is so comfortable to me.
Well, I'm the opposite there, back sleeper. Like seriously, like through some flowers. I'd be like, in the coffin. Nothing moves, anything. But getting back to the rom-coms, okay, are we a Hallmark person at all?
Hallmark and Lifetime, sure.
Okay, all right, Hallmark girl. Lifetime gets a little too, why I killed your son after having an affair. Like,
Yes, yes.
so
I don't do those ones anymore. Like the Hallmark version of the Lifetime ones, yes. But I
totally,
will say
complete.
Hallmark is probably where it's at.
I'm right with you there. That's my guilty pleasure completely. That I, for a long time wasn't even acknowledging. I wouldn't admit to it. It was a little, but then I'm just like, so what? I'm going to share it with everyone.
I did too at work, and it turns out we have quite a number who also share that guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
So
No, it's like, and it's all ages. I was on a flight and I actually wrote a Hallmark script. And so I was like in the process of writing it. And this girl who's college, and she kept looking at it and she's finally like, what movie you want? I'm like, so I thought she'd be, like loser. And I'm just like, for Hallmark. And she's like, I love it. It's like, like, what is it about?
wow. Did it get produced?
I'm still trying. So.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I'm just like, what do I know? Hallmark, you know what I mean? Because I'm a writer, I love writing. So it just kind of was something I was working for. But anyway, all right. So is there a secret skill aside from your mad tennis skills? Is there a secret skill that maybe few people know about, or just even not a skill, just something about you, something that might be inconsequential, but not a lot of people know about you?
I have a lot of those. Um, I over research anything. So like the most inconsequential purchase, I will over research. So think about like the level of research one might put into buying a car. I will also apply that to a water bottle.
Uh,
I feel like I want to get, if I'm going to buy something, I want the best, and I want to function in the best possible way.
oh, we're like, seriously, to buy a water bottle, it will take me maybe 2 weeks of research
Yes.
before I finally settle. I see all these open screens. Well, let me compare this and then I am exactly the same way. I totally do the same. So
Excellent.
completely agree with you there. All right. Share a failure that you may have had, as few as there may have been, but has there been a failure, but it actually redirected you in the right direction?
Uh, I don't know that I can pick one. I think that I know that I fail every day. I think the way that I try to approach it is that like I'm very introspective by nature, and so like at the end of the day, I'm constantly thinking about um, what did I miss today? What could I have done differently? Where was I wrong? And I do that because I'm not afraid to admit wrongdoing, and I'm not afraid to, like apologize or just rethink how I should have done something. I always want to grow from it. Something I also encourage my team to do, really embrace failure, share failure, because if you're not failing, then you're not growing. So I think every time that I have failed, I can at least take that experience to redirect me in the future just by sort of unpacking what happened and what I might have done differently.
I'm curious, and I totally agree. I think, and especially someone in your position, if you're not failing, then you're really not taking enough chances.
Yeah.
And I think that's in life in general. We all
Yeah.
need to, but I think it's also hard, and more so for women. Sometimes I can, because I'm afraid to fail, if it's not something that I've done, and I may stop myself if it's not in my wheelhouse
Yeah.
necessarily. And I think women tend to be that way. So on the other side of it, do you also at the end of the day look at what you did right? Do you see that as well? Like, are you always just more saying, okay, I need to fix this, or is there also the other half of that?
I probably don't spend enough time doing that, but now I'm going to, because you're right that's important. But I do reflect on moments where I can see or where may have gotten confirmation from someone that I had an impact on them. And those matter a lot to me, because that's why I'm here every day and why I show up for people, is to help obviously learn from others, but to have an impact on others. And so when I know that I can, whether it's at work or at home, I do spend time thinking about that because, again, you have to have some positive to keep you going and to keep you energized as far as like, why am I here? What am I here to do?
Yep, no, totally agree. But you got to give yourself that too, because I'm
Yeah.
sure where there's some failures, there's probably just as many
Yeah.
good things that happened. And I try to remind myself to do that as well. But I think it's just human nature to kind of go with the negative or
Yeah.
whatever. But yes, I'll try to remind myself as well. So, final question: if you weren't CMO, if you weren't a marketer, what would Plan B be? BB.
So I actually wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon,
Really?
but I never went to medical school.
Very different.
I never went to medical school, so I would be a terrible one.
That might be
Uh,
a disadvantage there.
So now I feel like, well, I have the best of both worlds. I can market for them
That
without
is true.
being one. But yeah, that was a dream for a while. And there were several points in my life, and I had a friend who was sort of in the same position where we kind of felt like, we should have gone to medical school. And she would say to me every year, she's like, you know what? If we had gone, we'd be doctors by now. And so that was kind of our thing. But I have no regrets. I'm truly grateful that I can now still be a part of that, but definitely playing on the side where my talents exist.
Well, I can't just end it there. I have to. Was this like childhood, like from elementary school, or was this as you got a little older? Were you having troubles with your knees? Like,
Probably all of the above.
even just that I wanted to be a surgeon or I wanted to be a doctor. It's I want to be an orthopedic surgeon.
I mean, as a child, I started off wanting to be a pediatrician, a professional basketball player, and in advertising. And I obviously wasn't most of those. But I think at some point along the way, like the doctor thing stuck with me. And it was always sort of that in the back of my head, maybe I should have. And then it evolved from pediatrician to like, what do I like? I enjoy sports, I enjoy movement. So that's what sort of drew me to orthopedics. And then surgery because I enjoyed working with my hands. But
I,
again, I think I chose wisely.
now it all makes sense. I'm like, that was out of the blue. So now I can understand. Okay. Well, but I'm very glad you were CMO.
Me
And
too.
although if I have maybe issues with my knees years ahead, then I will wish that you went the other way. But
No, you come to HSS, don't come to me.
okay, I'll definitely do that. Well, Janelle, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you and seeing all sides of you.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you have anyone you want me to pull back the curtain on, please let me know. I will do my best to get her. So thank you. And thanks again, Janelle.
Thank you.